Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
How's everybody doing? You guys all right?
Boise State Public Radio and Duck Club Entertainment present the Charlie Hunter Trio.
Charlie Hunter, ladies and gentlemen.
Wednesday, March 18th at the Shrine Social Club in Boise. Blending jazz, funk, blues, and rock. Hunter is a guitarist, producer, and bandleader who will present his unique finger-picking technique on custom hybrid guitars. Tickets are available now at theduckclub.com.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. More Idaho Matters right now. Well, today we are lucky enough to have, do I dare say, one of, if not, our most favorite guest back on the show, New York Times bestselling author Ridley Pearson. Now, you might be familiar with Ridley for his much-loved series, The Kingdom Keepers, and he has a new series that's unfolding right now. In fact, his latest book, Magical Map Number 2, Jungle Cruise, is out. And if you've ever wondered what it might be like to step right into a Disney park adventure, then this series brings that magic to life. It follows Gemma, yes, just like me, and her brother Torin as they discover a map that makes the parks come alive in ways you never expect. And I tell you, if you have kiddos that love to read, or you have a hard time with your kids wanting to read, pick these books up. Ridley, it is just always such a joy to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Joan.
Okay, so Ridley, Magical Map Number 2, Jungle Cruise, it drops us right back into the heart of a classic Disney ride. So what made you pick the Jungle Cruise for this second book?
Well, the second book is out, and now the third book is out, which is The Haunted Mansion.
Oh, that's
And
right.
I think all of us as parents who are paying attention should be concerned about screen time.
Mhm.
And that those screens are televisions, they're gaming screens, and they're phones. And that is what our kids are reading, if you can call it reading, because it's often just little quips and blurbs and this and that. And my mission here, along with hundreds of other really qualified and terrific authors, is to keep these kids reading the written word. And Magical Map is aimed at very young readers, first or second grade, all the way through fifth. And thankfully, I've got a bunch of adults who used to read The Kingdom Keepers writing me that they're reading them too. But it's a way for, the kids aren't going to go buy these books. The parents have to go buy these books,
Mhm.
whether it's other people's, and bring them home and leave them around and read them to their kids and see if they can keep their kids interested in reading a book. And so Disney and I've been writing for Disney for 25 years now, and Disney and I came up with a series that puts Gemma and her brother Torin through a magical map and into the Disney attractions. So to answer your Jungle Cruise question, I try to pick legacy attractions, those that were there from the beginning or shortly after the beginning. And I put the kids into helping the ride get back on track. Usually the ride has messed up in some way, and the kids go into the ride when no one's there, and they discover things about the ride that no one knows. And then if they're lucky, they fix it. And I just have so much fun with these, I can't tell you.
So I have to tell you, The Haunted Mansion, because this is book 3, I have an incredibly vivid memory of the very first time I went on that ride. I was 8 years old, and I went on it with my dad, and my dad has now been gone for 25 years. And
wow.
when I went back on that ride then with my kids, and my oldest at the time was about 6, it brought back such incredibly wonderful memories because I got to do it with my dad. And
That's so fun.
I mean, seriously, like it is, there is something magical about those rides that have been there, as you said, from the beginning. So here's my question. How often when you are in the midst of writing these books, do you get to visit the parks and really let your imagination go wild, but you get to incorporate these classic, you know, rides that, I mean, someone like me remembers from when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, it's really cool to think of the parks that way. Thank you for that. That's actually something that now I got to write another series here. But it's interesting that you say it triggered memories with your dad and brings that back. I'm so present time in my writing that I don't think of that treasure of memories. But you're right. We did the same thing with our kids, and I'm sure, you know, I haven't experienced that because when I go into the rides, I'm so lucky. Disney lets me go into these rides when no one is there. So I go in at like 5 in the morning with a Disney Imagineer. I've done it 30 sometimes, and I
Oh
get
my
to
gosh.
pick an attraction or two or three, and we walk them in the dark, just emergency lighting, and I take all sorts of notes, and then they turn it on and let me ride it alone for 5 or 10 times, taking more notes, and then I fly home and write these books. But and that's just the most amazing experience, and Disney is so generous to let me do that. But um, it's so fun to hear that going back there reminded you of times with your dad. That's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
that's what the parks are there for. They're there to start, stimulate our imagination and take us away from all the troubles of real life and give us a few hours of just fun and craziness.
mhm.
And it worked for you. So that's really fun to hear.
Well, and I want to go back to what you said about screen time because this is something that I think all parents struggle with, right? And it is trying to get our kids to enjoy reading. And I will tell you this, and you and I have talked about this before, that my oldest, it was really hard to get him to want to just pick up a book for enjoyment. And the day I put Peter and the Starcatchers in his hand, it clicked with him. And I can never forget, I will never forget him sitting there and reading, you know, Peter and the Starcatchers. The same with the Kingdom Keepers with my youngest. I mean, what's that like for you when I mean you're out in the world. I mean, there have to be times where you've seen a kiddo reading one of your books
Oh yeah.
and knowing
Yeah.
that you know that it's like you one book at a time, hopefully it's getting kids to take a pause and pick up a book and read.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the hope. That's whether it's mine or Rick Riordan's or a million other, Owen Colfer's, whoever your favorite author is, or an author you can find. That's the mission, is to keep people reading. And I do we just did some auditions for a musical I've written, and one or more of the kids came up. One came up and said, I got immersed in Peter and the Starcatchers as a kid. I read the whole series. I'll never forget them. A young man came up to me and said, I didn't connect it until the end of the auditions here, but you're the guy who wrote the Kingdom Keepers. And then we had this big Kingdom Keepers, discussion. That part of it is really fun. I get many, many emails every week from readers, some of whom are now 30 and reading the books to their kids, most of which I get are from kids. And
Mhm.
they're reading books and they're getting
Yeah.
carried away and they're using their imaginations and they're envisioning something from the written word, and that's going to help them forever. I mean, it's just going to help them forever. So it's just a joy. It's a great offshoot of what I do for a living.
Yeah. Well, you know, you didn't start out writing children's books. I mean, you wrote
I
for
did not.
adults
I've
and you
been
wrote
murdering people for years.
yeah, I was going to say you started writing thrillers for
The
adults.
police are still
So
looking for me, Gemma, but I
yeah,
keep hitting
and
them.
they're going to
Right
keep
now,
looking. So what do you enjoy most about writing for young readers versus how you started out writing adult thriller novels?
yeah, and I'm still writing for adults, and I'm working on a million TV projects and different things like that. I think more than a writer, or less than a writer, maybe is more accurately, I'm more of a storyteller. I
Mm,
love the power of story, and each book, I mean, I've written 60 some books now, and each one I try to write better, but hopefully I've been telling stories well for a long time. That's my hope in life, is that that people enjoy and get carried away by the stories. Sometimes the stories are a little superficial. Sometimes they have deep undercurrents of meaning. The magical map books, the Kingdom Keepers books, have a lot of subliminal work put into them so that the kids can enjoy them and the parents can see that I'm actually trying to reach kids in terms of forming teams and doing things with others
Mm.
and learning to make friends and accepting our faults and accepting the faults in others and celebrating friendship and community. But hopefully that stuff doesn't jump out at the kids to where they throw the book across the room. So, it's all a balance, but really I'm more of a storyteller than some great
Yeah.
Irish writer or something.
And so Magical Map, as I mentioned, is a series. Book 3 is out. Do you know how many there are going to be in this series?
Yes, there are 6 in the series, and I'm polishing 5 right now and beginning work on the 6th.
You mentioned a musical that you've been writing. So tell us about this because you had auditions recently, but give us the background on this.
Dave Barry and I wrote a book called Peter and the Starcatchers, and we wrote a
Mhm.
number of books in that series. And we were lucky enough to have Disney develop over a 6-year period, and eventually they put it onto Broadway, and it won 5 Tonys. It was written by the great Rick Ellis. Thankfully, Dave and I didn't write it, or it probably would never have been produced. But it was just this amazing experience. I asked Disney. I've always loved theater. I grew up outside of New York, and my parents took us into theater all the time. And I asked Disney when they purchased it to make it into a play and with music, if I could be a part of this. And so for 6 years, I flew to different places to see where they were trying different elements of it. And I just fell in love with that process. So when COVID hit, I was asked by a private school in Connecticut called Pomfret if they could have the rights to one of my books and write a play about it. And I
Hmm.
said, sure. I checked with Disney and they okayed it. And that became, because of COVID, I ended up getting involved in that. And I co-wrote the script, and then we had COVID stretched on so long. I'm
Mhm.
a musician as well, and I asked my co-writer, do you think I could just try to write this as a musical and write the music and lyrics? So we did that. We performed it about 3 years later. It went over very, very well. But we felt the script had problems. So we started all over, wrote a brand new script, and kept 3 or 4 of the songs. I wrote 14 more songs. And we reached the point in the last 6 months where we really need to workshop this. We need to get it in front of an audience and then have that
Mhm.
audience respond, tell us what works and doesn't work. And we're going to do that on the 21st and 22nd of June in Menlo Park, California. So we had to have auditions, and we had them just this weekend, and it was incredible, Gemma. They were reading lines from the new play, and they were singing songs from the new play, and we had a blast.
So I have to go back to what you said about we scrapped it all and started over. And you wrote a whole new script. You wrote more songs. How in the world do you do that after you've already written something in its entirety? That sounds
That's like
so
the books.
daunting.
Y- Yeah, that's like the books. I mean, not one of my 60 some books has been published without me rewriting it 4 times. There
Oh
are
my goodness.
people like my good friend Stephen King who can write something the first time and get it right, although Stephen still edits most of his books 2 to 3 times. But I'm just not that author who gets it right the first time. And I try to accept editorial comments and criticism, because if I'm so smart, my last version is the best it can be, and it
Mm.
never is the best it can be. So I hired the dramaturg from Peter and the Starcatcher, which is an editor of plays, and his comment was there were a lot of good elements, but there were a lot of extraneous things, and we just needed to start over and focus on the mystery. So this is based on a book I wrote for children called Steel Trap: The Academy, And
Hmm.
the premise of that is a boy with photographic memory and a young woman with an incredible aptitude for languages meet at the same private school for boarding school. And they discover that things aren't all on the surface at the school. So this is a musical mystery comedy.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's apparently a grave on campus that shocks the kids, and they want to find the grave and they want to find out what's going on. And they get into all sorts of hijinks and they sing their way through the discovery of what's going on.
So after these two performances in June, this is the so it sounds like this is the kind of like the beginning process of the
It's
play being
really early
performed.
in the process, yes. 6 years in,
S-
by the way.
Oh, just 6 years in, and it's early in the process. So,
Right.
so what happens after that then? Like once it goes in front of these audiences, those 2 nights.
So after that, I will go back and rewrite it again. I will probably drop some songs and add some songs. I may edit some of the songs. We have a community. We have a community theater in I think it's Kentucky. No, it's in Pennsylvania. We have a community theater in Pennsylvania that may be interested in doing this next summer, the summer of 27. And we have Tulane University possibly doing it to teach their students there about writing musicals. So there's some new life. The long range goal is to get it licensed and agented by a group like MTI, and so that it can go out there and go into schools all over the country. One of the things that was happening, Gemma, was we realized in theater in high school, you often play people that are older than you, or
Mm-hmm.
musicals that were written 40 years ago. And we wanted to write something that could be acted, and the music could be played by students at the school, and students could play themselves into these roles. So this workshop we're going to do, very much of it will come from how the students react to what we've written and letting them tell us how it should look on stage. It'll be a really joint project. It's a full company project.
I love that. What is your best advice, Ridley, for young authors? I mean, I know you've taught at Boise State, and you know, but when I hear you talking about how there are just different processes for different writers, what is kind of like the best advice you could give someone who is dabbling in writing?
Well, I mean, the first is to keep reading.
Mm.
I am a gourmet reader. I read a page, stop, go back, read a paragraph again, and say, how did that person do that? We're using the exact same words, and yet hers are way better than mine. So, I mean, the first thing is reading, reading, reading. I think the second is dedicating time, whether it's 2 hours a week or 2 hours a day, to your writing. And the third is to get your ego out of it, and realize that all writers need help and need advice and need comments. And you should try that help and try those comments. If they don't work, all it is some wasted time. But if they do work, your work gets better.
Before I let you go, we have to talk about this reunion with the Rock Bottom Remainders coming up. And first, Ridley, I know you about 7 months ago lost a really dear friend who has been an integral part of the Rock Bottom Remainders, author Greg Isles.
Right.
So talk about this upcoming reunion, and really, it sounds like honoring Greg in a lot of ways.
In many ways, it is honoring Greg. I mean, we get offers to play. This is a band with Stephen King, Dave Barry, Mitch Albom, Amy Tan, Roy Blunt Jr., Scott Turow, Alan Zweibel from Saturday Night Live, on and on and on. James McBride, who's won the National Book Award, Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons, and we're the worst rock and roll band, Gemma, you have ever heard, but we have a ton of fun. And because of the names on our slate, we get a lot of attention, and we get many offers. We don't make a cent on this. We always do this for the good of nonprofits. And in this case, we were approached by a library system in Omaha, Nebraska. They had just spent a heap of money redoing several of their libraries, and they wanted to have a big bash to get everyone's attention onto the fact that all these libraries had been redone, and they've invited the remainders to play. So we're going to play on April 10th, and make our crazy 1960s and 50s rock and roll come to life in our absurd way, because again, we are no good, but we have a ton of fun. And we lost Greg Iles, who was just a huge part of the band. And some of the band who had been always in our text streams and our email streams realized that they'd missed their chance to say goodbye to Greg, and they have jumped in. So Matt Groening from The Simpsons, who's right there from the beginning, 32 years now we've been playing, but Matt hasn't been to a show in years, and he's coming because of the loss of Greg. And then James McBride wrote the most beautiful tribute to Greg in an email to us all and said, I never had a chance to say goodbye to my brother, and I am going to make it to this gig, and I'm going to make sure I stay in touch with all of you. So James is after about a 5-year absence, is also going to make it to a gig. So we're going to have a blast. The audience is going to need earplugs, and we'll see how it goes.
But everything you raise goes to nonprofits, Ridley, which I mean,
Absolutely.
kudos to all of you for, frankly, all of you have such busy lives. So to do this and then to be honoring a friend, but at the same time, you know, making sure libraries thrive. I mean, kudos to all of you.
Yeah, well, thanks. We have a blast doing it. We've raised about $3.5 million over the 30 years for nonprofits, and we love making fools of ourselves if it helps others. So that's really all it's about.
Well, we love getting the opportunity to talk with you. So thank you so much for making time for us. We've been talking with New York Times bestselling author Ridley Pearson. His new series, Magical Map, is out now. The first 3 books are out. There will be 6 in the series. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Idaho Matters. And for quick news of the day, start your mornings with our podcast. It's called The Connector, Idaho Daily News. And if this episode meant something to you, text it to a friend.